They say that if you're not a member of the Zenin family, you're not worthy of being a jujutsu sorcerer. And if you're not a sorcerer, you're not even worthy of being called a human being. He opened his eyes to a crack. Light, blurry bright through leaves. Was this death? Then why did it hurt so much? His entire left side was throbbing. He tried to take a proper breath, choked, coughed up water. He tried to breathe again only to end up spitting out blood. He felt that he was lighter than usual. His eyes struggled to see when splashes of water invaded his vision. He lifted his head and felt rocks beneath him. He pushed himself up, shaking from the effort. The pain throbbed on his left side. He winced. He moved onto his right hand and knees. With enough will to fight, he dragged himself out of the river, gasping through clenched teeth. He rolled onto his back on the moss and rotten sticks at the water's edge. This was it, he thought. He simply peered up through the trees, listening to the sound of the river. His chest lifted unevenly. The river had not taken him, but the ache continued to chew at his nerves. Toji had survived another day, relieved, but at a price. He turned his head slightly. His left side was mangled, torn open where his left hand had been, now gone. Only blood trickled down the rocks, and he couldn't walk away from it this time. He attempted to breathe correctly. Instead, another cough ensued. A burning, tearing sensation went from his ribs to his throat. Every subsequent breath burned even more intensely than the first. He did not move. Just lay there, eyes half-lidded, staring at the sky. His vision dwindled with each blink. I guess this is what I get for ignoring my unease. And then everything went dark. I refused to do any work for free. Normally, I would have said that and gotten out of there. However, the newly awakened wielder of the limitless method was standing in front of my eyes. He was perhaps the most powerful jujutsu sorcerer of the current era. I wanted to reject him. I wanted to get him to his knees. I wanted to bring down the top of the jujutsu world, as well as the Zenin clan that had rejected me. I twisted myself in an attempt to assert myself. That was the moment I lost. I believed I had lost my pride. I thought I had decided to live without valuing myself or others. Toji was lost in his thoughts after accepting his death. Before the 6 eyes could end his torment, he was hit by a blinding light. Cold air rushed past, and he fell quickly. A side of the gorge raced past, grey rock, green moss, then small patches of white snow, all tumbling around him. He turned over slowly in the air, his limbs flailing pointlessly. Rushing wind whipped his eyes, tugged at his clothes, and tore the breath from his lungs. The water came up to meet him. It struck his face like a charging bull, punching the air out of his lungs. It knocked the sense out of his head and dragged him into the cold darkness. The swishing of fabric brushed past his ears. That was the first thing. Swishing, swooshing, and the faint rustle of trees, accompanied by a strange chirp of a voice. Then warmth spread across his chest. Why is it so warm? He opened his eyes, squinting. The sunlight was still blinding, forcing his eyes to close. It was not helping when a sudden piercing sound accompanied it. He had faced far greater threats than sensory overload. So Toji gathered his bearings bit by bit, until a shadow broke across. A humanoid figure, whatever it may be, spoke trash, as far as he knew. But the heavy ringing continued to plague him. He blinked. The figure became far clearer. A face. The ringing slowly dissipated. Red hair, violet eyes, black round glasses. A striped headband held her hair back. Her face hovered close, brow furrowed. Their eyes met. Startled, she pulled back and blurted out. Accused Ubuojiad, a Wakinok. The woman tried to communicate but failed to do so. It was a language he had never heard before, and his eyebrows furrowed. She wore a white apron over a black dress, something akin to a French-made outfit. In the middle of nowhere as far as he knew. Even though he was confused, he needed to leave. He was losing blood quickly. It's better than playing sock puppet with a foreigner. He braced himself, his right hand pushing against stones to sit up, only to be shoved right back down by a firm grip on his one good shoulder. Ruoteshi wogake adohi denakagu. He was shocked and confused, staring up at the woman. Threatening or reprimanding he could never tell, breath wheezing in his raw throat. All right, I got it. Just don't make it worse when you push me down, would you? Her eyebrows furrowed. She leaned a bit closer. Yasa, Nemog, Arta, Na, On, Eti, Yuri, Atok, Agnesa, Miracle. She spoke slowly this time, hoping he could understand, but still keeping a firm grip on his shoulder to keep him from making his injury worse. If this was another case, a woman taking the lead, then, too bad he couldn't understand what the lady was saying, and mouthing words of an unknown language would never help. She raised her left hand, palm wide. ETI, ETI. Rising from her sitting position, she backed away slowly, hands still raised. Once she reached a bag in the nearby boulders, she crouched and began rummaging through it. Her violet eyes switched back and forth between him and the bag's contents. Then she froze, her fingers closed around something, a small bottle filled with red liquid. Are you kidding me? Is she gonna make me drink that? I was expecting bandages. She stood again and walked toward him, the bottle in hand. With a quick pull, she removed the cork and offered it. He leaned back, shaking his head. He's not crazy enough to accept anything that could possibly harm him, especially when it came from a stranger. The woman sighed, and walked to the nearby bushes. She lowered herself to her knees, reaching into the bush. Rummaging through the leaves, after a moment, she pulled out a stick and standing again, she approached close, but not enough to invade his space. She crouched by a cluster of rocks, she stabbed the stick between them, prying and pushing until she cleared a small patch of dirt. Slowly, she began to draw. First, a bottle. Then, a stick figure with only one arm, the left side surrounded by jagged lines. Next, she drew the same bottle again, this time empty. Finally, she drew the stick figure once more, now without the jagged lines. He chuckled at the depictions. You're not a very good artist, are you? She pointed to herself, then to the red liquid, then to his wounds again, trying to make it clear that she wanted to help him. She said, raising an eyebrow. Eroked attack or uohsed, he didn't need to understand the words, just the intent. That, he knew all too well. In the Zenin family, curse energy was everything. Not having it was a death sentence. So they threw him into a basement full of curses. Without any special ability to see curses, they had simply fed a child to them. To the same curses they trained others to exercise. But the woman in front of him, she didn't have any harmful intent. Toji was sure of it. If she wanted to hurt him, she wouldn't have stayed. She wouldn't have tried to communicate. Besides, what can it really do? He was dying, he was losing blood quickly. He was surprised he'd survived this long, especially after floating down that river. Maybe the poison will finish the job. At least then, he'll take his own foolishness to the grave. One last gamble wouldn't hurt. He sighed, his shoulders relaxing as he extended his right hand. As she gave him the bright red liquid, she exhaled quietly and smiled softly. He accepted it without protest. A wonder drug perhaps. He lifted the bottle and sipped. It tasted sweet, but thin and diluted. Then a soft green glow spread from his left side. The pain came all at once. Burning, tearing sensation. Then the skin turned dark and hard, but the nerves were completely destroyed, and desperately reconstructing itself. As if the body refused to fall apart. The heat ran from his ribs to his throat. Like a molten rod jammed into his shoulder, boring deep. He could feel red threads coiled beneath the skin, twisting and turning together like tight stitches. Each breath burned longer than the last. He refused to move. Simply lay there, eyes half-lidded, gazing up at the sky. Eventually the pain subsided, he felt that overwhelming heat stopped. He could breathe again without choking on blood or coughing it out. He was relieved, finally a gamble that worked in his favor. He let out a raw and raspy chuckle. He looked at his left side, once mangled and torn open. Now just smooth skin, no scarring could be seen. He felt relieved and confused, questioning why it was possible for a single bottle to heal him completely, except for the absence of his left arm. But beside that, the healing process was successful. What in the world am I in? Without the rare ability to use reverse curse technique, healing a wound this severe should have been impossible. Only Shoko Yeri and the Six Eyes had that kind of ability. He looked at the woman again. She didn't look concerned or surprised. She acted like this was normal. She didn't seem to be a jujutsu sorcerer, and Toji was sure that if this person had such talents, she would have been given a place in the jujutsu world. She sat beside him, running her fingers over the skin, gently inspecting the area. But that couldn't be right. Something like this, something that could restore his body so cleanly, shouldn't even exist in the hands of a stray maid.